Thank you once again to me. I think the one tweet that I saw over the weekend, late last night actually, was from an American guy who was saying, "This is getting crazy. It's enough now. I think people need to find each other and work this out because really this political spat trickling in into so many other regions now, and concerns mounting around South Africa and the benefits we derive from AGOA. Is that a real risk that we should be concerned about?"
Should we be concerned that there's a possibility that Trump may decide to kick South Africa off AGOA? I think we should be concerned, but there are many, many moving parts in this specific question. One is Donald Trump made it very clear he likes the Afrikaners a lot, or he wants to protect them. But if you kick South Africa off the AGOA Act, then agriculture will be affected, and those are quite often a lot of Afrikaners, perhaps the majority, that will be affected by being kicked off AGOA when it comes to agriculture. So there's a bit of a contradiction there. If we should be kicked off AGOA only, then the impact certainly will be on the South African economy. It will be a significant impact, but it's not the end of the world, because we will still be allowed to export to the United States, I think. But if Donald Trump decides to impose some export levies against South African export to the US, then of course that can have a bigger impact on the South African economy. So it really depends on what he wants to do. But what I'm very curious about, however, is that if you look at the South African financial markets, the rand appreciation that if there's this kind of spat between two governments, like what we have currently between South Africa, which is a tiny economy, and this absolute Goliath of a country called the United States, one would have expected that the rand will take a beating, and the capital market and all the other financial markets as well. So that is not happening. And I can't figure out why. The only reason I can think of is that, and again, what I do, I step back and see what happened in North America, for example, is that Donald Trump imposed this levies on Mexico and on Canada, and eventually the Mexicans, they said, okay, sorry, we're going to send somebody to the border, we're going to stop the flow of illegal drugs, and the same happened to the Canadians. So clearly Donald Trump won both those two wars, including the war or the spat with the Colombians. So I think the financial markets are telling me that they're not concerned about what's going on now, because the more pressure Donald Trump puts on the South African government, the more likely the chance that the South African government will step away from crazy policies like expropriation or race-based legislation and stuff like that. So that's the only thing that I can think of why the financial markets are reacting actually positive the last couple of days, despite this increase in tension between South Africa and the United States. Also, everybody's talking about trade, which is important, of course, but nobody's talking about financial sanctions. Like, for example, if Donald Trump if he really wants to hurt South Africa, he can simply say, listen, Americans are not allowed to buy South African debt instruments, government debt instruments, as an example. Now, that will have, I think, a bigger impact on the financial markets, well, on the South African economy, than sanctions or being kicked off the AGOA, for instance. That will lead to a sudden increase in bond yields. The rand will come under tremendous pressure. The financial system could eventually come under pressure, depending who participates and how successful it is, of course. The economy will come to a halt. The Reserve Bank will increase interest rates. All sort of other bad things will happen. And nobody's mentioned anything about the bond market so far, the capital market, financial sanctions, but that could happen. But for now, it's anybody's guess. Donald Trump is in charge of, it seems, foreign policy in the United States, and he keeps on changing his mind. I don't know what is going to happen. And it really depends on a combination of things on what the impact will be in the South African economy. So like I've said, in the meantime, in the last couple of days, the financial markets actually reacted quite positive to apparent negative.
Yeah. Oh, it really does become, sorry, I think there was a little bit of a lag there. It does seem like a wait and see kind of situation, but Duffy, if you can maybe help our viewers understand just the value that AGOA has had for the South African economy since we have been part of it. And what other alternatives do we have? You know, I've seen some economists saying, ah, let South Africa get off AGOA. We've got BRICS, we've got other trading partners, but they were all working together. You know, so it's not really one we can just be like, let's let go of it. We've got other alternatives. Perhaps I'll help our viewers just understand the value of AGOA for the economy.
I think as a starting point, it is crucially important for South Africa to keep all trade relations between all countries in the world as healthy as possible. And whenever we can create a new trading partner and more trade opportunities and more business opportunities, the more we can do that, the better. And the more we are being cut off from trade or capital flows of business opportunities, the worse it will be for the South African economy. So what happened to AGOA? AGOA gives South Africa preferential access to the United States, certain markets in the United States. It started in 2000. The benefit to South Africa, total trade is probably in the region of about 150 billion rand that we benefit from AGOA. But that is duty free, which means that the actual rand benefit to South Africa is a couple of billion rand. So in the bigger scheme of things, it's not really such a big benefit, AGOA itself. And even if we get kicked off AGOA, it doesn't mean we're going to stop exporting to the United States. There has to be some other measures, like for example, import duties on other things, not only benefits of AGOA, but some sort of negative sanction against South Africa. And then it can have a bigger impact on the economy. So AGOA is not a big, it's important, especially for certain industry, but it's not the end of the world. But everything adds up eventually. Remember this, the South African economy is hardly growing. And if we lose 0.1, 0.2% because we kicked off AGOA, it is a big deal because we're talking about a significant chunk of South Africa's economic growth because economic growth is so weak. And trying to get other markets, yes, we can perhaps always get other markets, but the US market is by far the biggest market in the world. If you want to do business, you want to do business certainly with the United States. Ask the Chinese. Part of the reason why the Chinese economy did so brilliantly well the last 30 years is because they accessed the European and American markets. So we must do exactly the same. Try to keep the benefits of AGOA certainly and try to expand our trade with the United States. It is not the end of the world, and certainly we can get access to other things. But to react like Gwede Mantashe and say we will not send our minerals to the United States, that is comments like that is just plain stupid. We want to do business with anybody, including the United States, Europeans, the Chinese, everybody, and try. And I don't think for one single moment we're talking about equals here. South Africa is not equal to the United States. The whole African economy, the whole of Africa is about approximately 2% of the world economy. The American economy is 20 times that size of the whole of Africa. There's no way that a minnow like us can go into a fight with the United States and come out the winner. Try. The reality is that Donald Trump is a top dog. Polish his ego and try to maintain as good as possible relations as what we can.
Absolutely, because it does touch on to even then the trade agreements within Africa itself. You know, it would impact the continental agreement when it comes to trade and so on. Yeah. No, well, thank you for those insights. Yeah, no, carry on.
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, of course, there are many other things we can and should do. It's not only about the United States, but we've got this African Free Trade Agreement. We as Africans, we must trade with one another. We must open up the capital flows between the various countries in Africa. We must start, because that is a low-hanging fruit. So why is that not happening? Why are our political leaders not expanding on that sort of stuff? And what is important, and we must understand this, is that one of the requirements for strong economic growth is the protection of private property rights. And I'm afraid sending a message out to the rest of the world that the government in South Africa intends to steal private property rights is not the right thing to do. People will not invest in a country where you run a risk that your property is going to get stolen by the state. So that is certainly something that we need to correct, that we're not planning to steal the property of the private sector. And in fact, that we should put measures in place to protect private property rights even more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the way that we did go around this expropriation bill wasn't the greatest way that government approached it. But thank you for the insights, Davi. And I think with that financial markets, you actually opened my mind up to that. So I think I'll look into that for the rest of the week, because you're right, we haven't touched on financial markets and what's happening there and the implications there. So I think I'll take a look at that tomorrow.
Okay, nice
No,
chatting to you.
perfect. Thanks, Davi. Have a great day further then.
Okay, cheers, you too. Bye bye.
Ciao.